And then cultivate your motivation. And especially rejoice at your opportunity to be here and to know the Dharma. So, last time we reviewed what we did the year before, verses 1 through 28. And then we forged ahead with 2 new verses. We're really doing it. That's why I said in a few years we'll still be doing the same text. Yeah. So we'll continue. It's good, if you have some time, read ahead in the text, because it's not a difficult text to understand, and it's so full of really practical gems to practice in our life. Okay, so the 2 verses that we did, new, yeah. Last time, verse 29 was talking about the 8 worldly concerns. So that one is has a lot of meaning in it. At the second meditation course I went to, the first one that I went to at Kopan, Rinpoche just dwelled on the 8 worldly concerns again and again and again and again and again. And he didn't let up on it. Yeah? And I notice his teaching style is very different now. Yeah? Now he tells more stories and he does more things with holy objects. But back then, he really hit us a lot with the disadvantages of the 8 worldly concerns and the suffering of samsara. So they're topics that really make you kind of look at your life a lot. And I notice not all teachers really go into, especially the 8 worldly concerns. Not all of them go into those in depth. But I appreciate so much that at the beginning of my practice, those 2 things got hammered into me about the 8 worldly concerns and the suffering of samsara. And I went years ago and thanked Rinpoche for doing that, because I think it really gave me a very good foundation in Dharma practice. What are we doing? And, what is our mind mostly concerned with? Yeah? Wealth and possessions, or losing them. Yeah? Praise and approval, or blame and criticism. Yeah? Good reputation, or lousy one. Nice sensations, or bad ones. And this is what occupies our life all the time. Yeah? And this is what interferes so much with our practice of Dharma, because we just get hooked into all the objects in the desire realm. Yeah? And we're in the desire realm. Yeah? So it makes a huge problem. So I didn't go into it in great depth here, when we were talking about it. If you look in the foundation of Buddhist practice, there's a section on them. But really pay attention to these 8. And if you can get some kind of handle on them, then your practice will really start to move. Yeah. And you'll also feel much better about yourself. Yeah. Because, why do we feel lousy about ourselves? Because we get attached to 4 of these things, and we're greedy and we're dissatisfied, and because we have antipathy and we get upset when we don't get those 4, and instead we get the opposite. Yeah. So either way, our mind is not peaceful, and then we know enough Dharma now to know that those are not mental states to cultivate. So when we try and rationalize to ourselves that it's just a little attachment, just a little sense of pleasure, what's wrong with it? Buddha didn't say anything wrong with his pleasure. That's true. Buddha didn't say anything was wrong with pleasure. But I'm not really attached. I could give it up like that. Yeah. So I'll just enjoy it now. I'll offer my enjoyment to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And then I know that I can just, go cold turkey on this. I don't have any attachment at all. Okay? So one part of your mind is saying that, and the other part of your mind is saying, who are you kidding? Yeah. Do you ever have those kind of dialogues going on in your mind, So, yeah, we know just enough Dharma now to know that when there's that kind of dialogue going on in our mind, that something isn't quite right. So, yeah, really think about verse 29. Then verse 30, yeah, also, again, so practical. Don't do negative actions for the sake of impressing other people or getting in on their good side or making them think that you're fantastic. So whether they're Brahmins, people who have high social status, whether they're the monastics or your teacher, whether they're celestial beings, whether they're honored guests, even your parents, don't try and, put on a good show to impress them. Anyway, they know us well enough. Yeah. Or even for the queen or king. Yeah. Or for your court. Yeah. So all your friends, your whole entourage of friends, the king or queen may be your boss. Yeah. So don't do things that are dishonest, that are non-virtuous to impress these people, because you may succeed in impressing them, but we're the ones who experience the karmic result of our actions. And no one else experiences them. We can't, slide it off on somebody else. Our computer files get lost. Our karmic seeds don't. Okay, unless we do something to counteract them. Okay, so now, verse 31. Although performing wrong and evil deeds does not at once, like swords, create a gash, when death arrives, those evil acts will show. Their karmic fruit will clearly be revealed. So right now, we know we can do all sorts of non-virtuous things. And I don't know about you, but I'm very good, extremely skilled at looking like I'm doing something virtuous, but my motivation is lousy. Okay? Do any of you have that talent? I'm extremely talented. It's called pulling the wool over other people's eyes. Okay? So we can do those kinds of actions, and at their initial result that we experience in this life isn't necessarily something bad. You go apply for a job, you don't lie, but you tell alternative facts about yourself. Yeah? So that you have, all sorts of good qualities, and because you're trying to impress somebody to get a job. And you tell yourself, oh, I'm not lying. This is what you have to do to get a job. So this, I'm being completely honest with my alternative facts. I love that expression. Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah, she was so creative. Yeah. Fake news is drab. Alternative facts is classy. Yeah. So, I can tell my alternative facts. It may even benefit me. Maybe I get the job. I impress somebody I want to impress so that they give me an opportunity that I want, or they let me do something I want. And there's no negative results that come right away. Yeah. So we think, oh, fine, no problem. But, yeah, death is the one thing we have to experience. And death and our future life is when those results can come, when those karmic seeds will ripen. And then there we are experiencing their results. Yeah. And at that time, because we did the actions, we rejoiced, we didn't do any purification. Yeah. Then the result ripens, and once that karmic force starts ripening, it's difficult to stop it. Yeah. And then, of course, our mind gets involved and creates a lot of negative reaction to it, and we create more destructive karma. Okay? So it's like, if you have a sword and you hit somebody with the sword, that person's injured right away. You can see it. Yeah. But creating our non-virtuous karma, you don't see the injury right away. It can happen a long time after that. But when it happens, wow, there we are. We're stuck with it. Okay, yeah?
You may think about a lot of other things that aren't necessarily karmic results. The karma is definitely involved, but that aren't so personal in their karmic results. Such as when like an industry pollutes an area and then the whole population gets sick, it's very difficult to be like, oh, you hurt me. And then another one is like when people emit things, it takes like 40 years for that to show up in the weather patterns. And because there's this lag here, we don't immediately correlate that negative action with this negative result.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of short-sighted thinking is in this life. So of course it carries over to our understandings of future lives.
Yeah.
We're already so dense.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, quite dense. Yeah, this is the whole thing about the denial of climate change. Even though we're experiencing the results now, we still deny that we're involved with the causes. 1980?
We're experiencing the CO2 emissions and the God, what is CH4 in human speak? Methane.
Yeah.
We're experiencing the methane and the carbon dioxide emissions from 1980 right now.
I see.
So
And what about the ones we're emitting now?
we'll experience those in 2060. There's a 40-year lag.
I see. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, my generation left it to you guys to fix. Yeah. And don't worry, it'll create more jobs. It's good for the economy. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. So let's continue here. Verse 32. Faith and ethical conduct, learning, generosity, a flawless sense of integrity and consideration for others, and wisdom are the 7 riches the Buddha taught. No other common riches have no worth. So do you remember over winter retreat, in the BBCs I talked about the 7 jewels of the Aryas? So here they are. Okay? So faith is not a good translation of the word, and I can't think of a good English translation. It means a combination of faith, confidence, trust. It's not blind faith, definitely not. Okay? But it's some kind of, you've examined the 3 jewels, you know their qualities, you trust them, you have confidence in them, and you're opening your heart to follow their guidance. Okay? So all of that is what is involved in faith. Yeah, it's not just some kind of blind devotion or worship or anything like that. Okay? So that's a very important quality to have. If we don't have that, then we tend to be full of doubt, we tend to be cynical, skeptical. Yeah, very difficult to practice the Dharma if we're cynical. Yeah, because with a cynical mind, then anything anybody tells us, we go, oh yeah, right. And we dismiss it without even thinking about it. So that denies us, the benefit of learning. Yeah. So faith is something that makes the mind receptive. It makes the mind joyful. Yeah. When you know the qualities of the three jewels, you know what direction you're taking in life, then there's a certain joy in your mind. Yeah. So think about how you were before you met the Dharma. Most of you have practiced for some time. What was your mental state like before you met the Dharma? Yeah, before you knew about the three jewels or any of that. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I felt like, what's the use of life? What's the purpose? What am I doing here? And then, learning about the Dharma and slowly over time developing trust and confidence in the three jewels, then my whole mood has changed. My whole attitude towards life has changed. Has that been your experience as well? Yeah. So you can see that, having this kind of faith and trust is very good for your mind. Okay, so that's the first jewel of the Aryas. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have blind faith, then it has to come from knowing the qualities of the three jewels, or through, understanding the four truths. And by understanding the four truths, then you know that the three jewels exist. You know why it's important to take refuge in them, and so on. Yeah. Reasoned faith. Oh, as a translation. It's difficult because in the low rig, there's three kinds of faith. And one is faith based on reasoning and conviction, but the other two are a bit different. So it's hard to pinpoint. Yeah. It's not fair to give the name of one kind of faith to all three. Yeah, even though that third one is the one that we emphasize. Okay, so faith, ethical conduct. Yeah, so here we are with ethical conduct again. Do you see it coming up again and again, whatever you read? Yeah, whatever you read, whether you're talking about the four truths, or you're talking about the Bodhisattva path, or you're talking about Tantra, whatever you talk about, there's always ethical conduct involved. Okay? And yeah, my modern term for ethical conduct is stop being a jerk, because that's really what keeping good ethical conduct is about. Yeah, we stop being jerks. Yeah, because what does a jerk do? A jerk just does whatever comes in their mind, whatever urge comes in their mind, they just follow it. They don't think of the results of their actions, how our actions affect other people, how they affect ourselves. Yeah. And so, that's why ethical conduct is so important on all different levels of the path. And ethical conduct is, who was it? Dale Carnegie wrote this book, how to win friends and influence people. If you want to win friends, best way is to have good ethical conduct. Because what is it that interferes with friendship? Why do you, break off certain friendships or let them grow distant? It's usually because somebody has acted in an inappropriate way and you don't trust them anymore. Yeah? So ethical conduct is all about building trust, and trust is one of the essential ingredients for social harmony. Yeah, if you want to have a good family, the people in the family have to trust each other. Yeah, if you want to have a good workplace, everybody has to trust each other. If you want to have a happy monastery, we have to trust each other. And all that comes from ethical conduct. Yeah. So quite important, not only for this life, but also for future lives, because ethical conduct, or the lack thereof, is the primary thing that is going to influence what realm we take rebirth in. Yeah? What's the cause for precious human life? Principal cause to have a human body? Ethical conduct. Okay? Born in the hell realms, hungry ghost realm, animal realm, principal cause, transgressions of ethical conduct. Okay? So it's quite important for this life and future lives. Mm-hmm. And then the thing is, if we keep good ethical conduct, then we don't feel full of guilt, and we don't have all sorts of conflicted emotions, and we're not worried about other people, finding things out about us and losing faith in us. Yeah. So we don't have to spend so much time covering things up and worrying about what other people think of us, because we've acted well. Hmm? I mean, look what Bill Clinton did and what he put the country through, because he didn't want to admit that he didn't have good ethical conduct. Yeah? I mean, sleeping around, lots of people do that. But when you're president and then you lie about it, yeah, well, then you have the initial thing, but it's the lying. Yeah. And he put us all through having to deal with lies, and the current president, I won't even talk about. Yeah. But you can see that ethical conduct is really the foundation for harmony among people. Mm-hmm. So important. So that doesn't mean we all need to be goody two shoes, And I don't know, did you goody two shoes and Susie cream cheese? Yeah. So, they're the ones who just act perfect. And I guess you could have Sammy cream cheese too. Yeah. Or Stevie cream cheese. Yeah. So it's not about being a goody goody. Yeah. It's about being, an honest human being. Yeah. Okay. The next one, learning. Okay. So learning, a jewel of the Arya, we need to learn. If we don't learn, what are we going to think about? What are we going to meditate on? Yeah. I was talking yesterday about this, that meditating on emptiness isn't just throwing all the thoughts out of our mind and sitting there going, emptiness, 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 And similarly, generating compassion isn't about sitting there and going, compassion, compassion, compassion. We have to learn how to do the meditations to generate that experience of compassion. So learning is incredibly important. Yeah, the next one is generosity. So that too, we can see every religion, every human being, even if they have no religion, everybody says generosity is something good. Don't they? Yeah, we all know that sharing things is good for others and good for ourselves. And that we depend on each other. And so, sharing what we have, it's just kind of like the hand helping the foot. They're part of the same organism, so it's not a big deal to be generous or to share. Okay? And we also feel good about it. Yeah? Even if you're like me and you have to talk yourself into being generous. Okay? So I have to do quite a lot of work on myself to have that kind of generosity. But when I succeed, then it's good. When I lived in India, I was very poor. So it was very hard for me to give money to the beggars. So at that time in India, a cup of tea cost 25 paise, which was about a penny. Yeah. And I would walk to the market to get my vegetables each week. And, I have to scrimp on everything. But there would be a row, all the lepers sitting there. We had our lepers, and sometimes their friends from other places came too. And it was so hard for me to give the lepers 25 paise for a cup of tea because, it was coming out of my vegetables. And I look back on that now and I go, my goodness, what was going on in my mind? It was so ridiculous. But it was very difficult because, again, I knew enough Dharma, and I had Geshe Nawan Darge's teachings echoing in my mind about generosity as I walked past the lepers trying to pretend that they don't want a cup of tea or dinner or something like that. And it created this incredible dissonance inside, just looking at my own miserliness. So generosity is really much better. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one is a flawless sense of integrity. Okay, so integrity and consideration for others. These are two mental factors that are among the 11 virtuous mental factors. And these two are ones that help us abstain from negative actions. Okay? So integrity is a sense of self-respect that respects ourself and respects our Dharma practice. And so we don't want to be the kind of person who does X, Y, and Z. Okay? So, there's the opportunity to, state, to do one of these little white lies, another alternative fact. And there's the opportunity, and nobody will find out. But your sense of personal integrity says, I don't want to be the kind of person who does that. Even if I can get away with it, I don't want to be that kind of person. Yeah, I respect myself too much. Yeah, and so we don't do it, even though we know we could get away with it in terms of worldly people not knowing. Consideration for others is abstaining from negativity because we see that what we do will have an adverse effect on others. Okay, so, and this is one of the benefits of wearing robes. Or some people may say it's one of the disadvantages of wearing robes, but I think it's a benefit. Because when you go out in public, people look at you. And if you don't behave properly, they know it. So if you want to keep good ethical conduct, then, wearing robes and sticking out helps you to do that. Yeah, because people nowadays, many people recognize the Dalai Lama. They recognize the robes. So if we don't behave properly, then they go, oh, look what the Dalai Lama's students are doing, right, and that's not so nice. Okay, so it really helps us be aware of how our behavior influences other people. Yeah. So even if you don't wear robes, you guys can get away with it. But still, if when we act in inappropriate and harmful ways, it adversely affects people, even strangers. Yeah. I mean, why are just the mood in the country right now of so many people feeling discouraged, and full of despair? It happens because of the lack of ethical conduct and people not caring about the effects of their actions on other people. Yeah. Whereas if we really try and, do the best we can, that can be inspiring to other people and give them faith in humanity again, which is quite important. With the inmates that I work with, one of the chief things that got them into prison is they didn't think about the effects of their actions on other people or on themselves. Yeah. So these two mental factors were lacking, and so then, okay, some idea came up in the mind and you act it out, and then later you have to experience the results of your own actions. Okay, so good to think about this beforehand. Okay, so a flawless sense of integrity and consideration for others, and wisdom. So the wisdom that knows not only the ultimate mode of existence of phenomena that will cut off our ignorance, but also the wisdom that knows how karma and its effects operate. Because when we know how causality, cause and effect operates, then we have a lot of ability and power even to influence what we experience. Because we have that knowledge of what causes to create if we want happiness, and what causes to abandon if we don't want suffering. Okay, so these are the 7 riches that the Buddha taught. And then Nagarjuna says, no other common riches have no worth. Okay, so your 401k, your IRA, anyway, your 401k might have evaporated by now anyway. Your IRA, your stocks and bonds, compared to the worth of the jewel of these 7 jewels, the other stuff doesn't mean much. Yeah, it comes and it goes, and none of it will get us a good rebirth. Yeah, when we die, the Lord of Death, we're anthropomorphizing death. There's no real Lord of Death. But you can think, if the Lord of Death shows up, what am I going to do? Offer him my inheritance? Like, Lord of Death, I'm kind of busy today. Can I give you some bakshish and then you come back in a couple of years? Yeah, that's not going to work. Yeah, you can give other people bakshish, but you can't give the Lord of Death bakshish. You know what bakshish is? Okay. Bakshish is a bribe. It's, what you say when you're in India. It actually means like a gift or a tip. But the meaning is, you give me a gift and your visa will get stamped for longer. Yeah. Yeah, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's in our country too. Okay. 33. Okay, here are more things to abandon. Gambling, public spectacles and shows, and indolence, bad company, strong drink, and nightly prowls. Ooh. Are you going on nightly prowls? Our kitties like that, get out at night and go check out all the chips and the moles, and yeah, they go on nightly prowls if they can. Okay, so these 6 will lead to lower realms and damage your good name, so give them up. So gambling, yeah. Gambling, we can see the harm it does. I mean, families are torn apart because a relative has lost money gambling. Yeah. In Singapore, they built these beautiful, 2 of them, wasn't it? Big casinos. Yeah. Two huge casinos. And they know the defects of gambling. So people who are not Singaporeans can go in the casinos free. Singaporeans have to pay, what, $100 or something per entry. Yeah, to deter them. Yeah. So the government wants to help their own citizens, but they're happy if people from other countries come and, blow their money and harm their family. Yeah. So, yeah. So gambling is very detrimental, and I've talked to several people who have relatives involved in gambling, and it's just makes a mess in the family, big mess. Okay. So, you have a layover in Vegas when you're flying, to and from your home and the Dharma course. Yeah. So you have to change planes in Vegas, and the slot machines are there. And it's like, well, it's only a quarter, and I could win so much. And give it to the Abbey, yes. So this is definitely virtuous, If I gamble, I'm creating a virtuous karma. And so then, you go and you put all your quarters in the one-armed bandits. Yeah. So, big problem. Second one, public spectacles and shows. Yeah. Maybe like the 4th of July in D.C.? I don't know. uh, military parades. Things where what is your mind like when you're in a big crowd of people and entertainment is going on? You might be dancing, you might be at a sport event, you might be watching a movie or a concert or, who knows what. Yeah. So what is the mind like then? Yeah. Can that mind think clearly when you're caught up in public spectacles and shows? Quite difficult. Now, watching a documentary, maybe, you can think about things more seriously. But mostly big public gatherings, quite, for entertainment purposes, difficult to have a lot of mental control. We get quite swept up. So I know that some of you like going dancing, a little bit of drinking, go to the pub and dance, have a good time. And I just ruined it. Because next time you go, you're going to hear my voice. Just like I would hear my teacher's voice, when I was trying to walk by the beggars without giving them anything, So anyway, think about it. And indolence, next one, indolence, lying around. So that's one of our favorite things, isn't it? Indolence. Just lying around, taking it easy. I'm so stressed out from work anyway. Teaching these Dharma courses just takes all my energy. I think I want to go have a nap in the meadow with all the bugs. Yeah. Or, I just want to lie around. So we can spend a lot of time lying around, can't we? Yes?
With the public spectacles and shows, do you think it's more about indulging? For example, going to a show for me, it's less harmful than scrolling Instagram for 30 minutes. There can be a lot of things that you can indulge at home by yourself, watching Netflix, scrolling Instagram, and doing all these things.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah.
So this was written before we had everything at home. Yeah. If we were to update it, we would put in Netflix, Instagram, Facebook, the whole 9 yards. Okay. So we just have to take what he said, public spectacles and shows, and extrapolate from, what that could possibly mean now. But you're right, we can sit at home and just, porn is available online. You don't even need to go out anymore. You can just dial up and there it is. Your kids can show you how. Yeah, you dial. Okay. Yeah, you click. But, and there it is. Anything you want to distract yourself and amuse yourself. And you can even erase it afterwards so that nobody knows, what.
Go incognito still.
Yeah, right. You make up a fake name.
Just want to do I
Yeah, you make up a fake name, Dharma Bum, and then you log on to porn sites. Okay. Um, so, yeah, so, you can do it completely, nobody knows. And then you erase where you were and yeah. Hmm. I mean, I'll give you a chance in a minute, but this is what our modern society is about, isn't it? The easiest, quickest, cheapest way to entice us to pleasure. And in doing so, they track us, they get our information, they put all these ads on to get us to buy things that we don't need. Yeah. And we fall for it.
I'm thinking about the motivation to do some activities. Like, I was thinking about there was a time when, for me, going dancing seemed to be really healthy for my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe I was not as aware of how my thoughts were making me anxious or depressed. And just going dancing got me in my body and helped me to,
Yeah.
let go of those things.
Yes.
But now I notice it can still have that effect. But like if I go out dancing to a club or something, afterwards it's a different effect. I feel kind of empty. Or even just, I feel like I could have used my time better.
Mm-hmm.
Or I didn't have my thoughts on even virtuous things. This is like what I think about now.
Mm-hmm.
That, anyways.
Yeah. So you can see the difference. And there's been a change in you that, helps you to see what actually brings pleasure and what doesn't. But I was a dancer too, so I empathize. Yeah. So we can sneak out together. Joking. Well, now, who knows what people look like when they go out. Yeah. I'm waiting for this to appear, on the front cover of Vogue someday. Yeah. And then they'll be selling it at Macy's.
America.
Oh, okay.
And I was in Louisiana. I got stopped, and a lady said, "Oh, I saw you dress actually in a sewing show. So did you got it from there?" So yeah, she couldn't identify me as a nun, but she said exactly the same dress she has seen in a sewing show on the
A
TV,
fashion show.
fashion show or something.
Fashion show.
Yeah.
Okay, that's that. Get ready, girls. That's how we're going to raise the money for Buddha Hall. Okay. Okay, indolence, bad company. Yeah. So bad company. Yeah, they talk a lot about this. And they say that a bad friend or bad company doesn't mean, somebody with horns on their head or somebody, wearing the mask who's going to sneak up, jump at you from behind a bush or, like that. Bad friends are people who genuinely care for us from a worldly view. So these are people who, before you come to a retreat like this, they ask you, what are you going to do on your holiday? And you say, I'm going to a meditation retreat. And they say, what? Yeah, you're spending your holiday looking at your belly button? What in the world do you want to do that for? Okay. So these are good friends. They want us to be happy. But for them, happiness is, let's go on a cruise or let's, let's go skiing or water skiing or snow skiing or lying on the beach or something like that. Let's go out to a show. Let's go out dancing, and they want us to be happy, but because they have a worldly view, they can easily, our attachment afflictions they throw out the hook and they throw out the hook and we latch onto it, and then just follow them. Mhm. And then we start to think, or you come to a retreat and then your family says, oh, you went on retreat, and why'd you do that? That costs money, and the family could have gone on a holiday instead. Why are you spending your money on people who just sit there who don't even work? Huh? What are you giving money to people who are from the free lunch club? Yeah, that's ridiculous. And then you start thinking, oh, maybe they're right, Why should I give dana? Or why should I go on a meditation retreat? I mean, I am just looking at my belly button. I could be out doing all those things with my friends and we have a good time. Then my parents will finally think I'm normal. Yeah. Okay, so these are what bad friends, bad company means. Yeah?
This is actually something that's kind of, for me, come up recently because as I'm almost a little less than a year away from paying off my debt, I've had a lot of my colleagues have said like, oh, we're going through an acquisition right now. Have you thought about, we're looking at some medical director position over European medical affairs. Like, you'd be great for it. Kind of, and all I'm thinking is like, that just gets me more and more entrenched in samsara, more stress, taking me away from the Dharma. And they mean well, and some of them know of my bigger aspirations, and they're
And you
like,
would be really good at it.
they're like, you could do so much
and
good.
you'd help so many
And
people.
what a waste for you to give up all of that just to look at your belly button for the rest of your life. And so that's really interesting because I
Yeah.
know they mean well, but
Yeah.
in many ways it's very selfish motivation for them. Like, I don't want to let you go, or, what's the point of that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, for me, has been very clear lately how that can manifest in
Oh,
so many
yeah.
different ways.
And it's very enticing, because you want to please people, you want people's, approval. And, you did work hard. I mean, how many years did you go to school? And you had a 6-digit debt, and finally you're out of it. And isn't that happiness? The peak of happiness, being free of a 6-digit debt. Forget about the bliss of nirvana. Yeah, that's the most you can hope for in samsara. And then you start thinking, well, these people have a thought, and I could do it. Yeah, I could go to Europe. Then I could travel around, see all these things. I know they have lots of Dharma centers in Europe. I could really go to these centers, do many retreats, learn some other languages. Yeah, even go to India. It's a good idea, yeah? Yeah. And I'm very talented, and I'll make even more money, and I'll give that to the Abbey. Yeah. So this is really a win-win situation. Yeah. My sister will say, wow, good going. And my parents will say, look what my son did. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah. And then see what happens. Okay, next one. After bad company, strong drink. And it's not referring to lemonade. Okay? So any kind of intoxicants. Yeah. And as you've heard me say many times before, the guys that I work with in prison, 99.9% of them were intoxicated when they did the thing that got them in prison. And none of them on that day when they woke up said, I'm going to do something that's going to land me in prison. They were just going about their day and they got loaded, and then one thing led to another, and, now they have a 20-year sentence. Some guys have a life sentence. I mean, I know people who did crimes as juveniles, and they got sentenced to life without parole, which the Supreme Court has overturned and said that is illegal to do. Then they had to have another court case to say that they have to go back and resentence these people. But I know guys in Missouri who've been sitting there. The Supreme Court case to resentence them was many years ago, and they're still sitting in prison. The Missouri legislature and dragging their feet. The Department of Control of Parole, yeah, dragging, and and they did something awful when they were 16 or 17. Yeah, very talented people, very nice people, actually. A few of them that I know, and there they are because of if intoxication wasn't the only reason they were going. They weren't thinking clearly. They were into a lot of stuff before, but it's like the drugs or the booze push them over the edge. And then also just thinking about your behavior when you get intoxicated. Yeah. One time in one course, do you remember, we had people tell stories about the things they did when they were intoxicated? The Vajrasattva retreat? Yeah. And we told stories. Yeah. We did things that were definitely stupid, dangerous, and harmful. Yeah, to self and others. So, that's why repeatedly, Nagarjuna, especially in Precious Garland, also, many times he talked about abandoning intoxicants, again and again. And And the last one, nightly prowls.
Yeah.
Okay? So staying out late at night, doing who knows what, and where knows where. Okay? And, very easy to, again, you stay out late, who knows what in the world you're doing, what state of mind you come home in, if you can even walk straight. And then, of course, the next day you're out of it, aren't you? Yeah. So these 6 will lead to lower realms. So if you want an unfortunate rebirth, that's the recipe. These 6 also damage your good name and make people lose respect for you. And so if you have the wish to be of benefit to sentient beings, if they lose respect in you because you're drunk or you're intoxicated a lot, then how can you be a benefit to them? Yeah. And what in your family, what does it do to your family? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure many of you came from families with alcoholic parents or drug addicted parents. Yeah. How many people had that? So you know what it's like and what it does to the family, what it does to the children. So we don't want to do that to anybody else. Yeah, we're developing affection for others. We're developing respect for others. We don't want to do things that will harm them. Yeah, especially things that are useless. Mhm. Okay, verse 34. Of all the great wealth, now he's talking about what great. He talked about the riches before, those 7 jewels of the Aryas. Now he's going to talk about other wealth and riches. Of all great wealth, contentment is supreme. Okay, now would you have thought contentment is supreme of the wealth? Maybe you would have thought good reputation or praise, and lots of people telling me how wonderful I am. But those are all part of the 8 worldly concerns. Yeah. So you feel good when you have them, but as soon as you don't, you feel awful. Okay. So contentment. Yeah. So stop for a minute and imagine being content. Yeah. What would that be like? Yeah. You get up in the morning and you get up in the morning and you're content to get up. You're not fighting it like, oh God, I want to sleep more. You're content to get up. Yeah. You go have breakfast. There's no coffee. You're content. You can imagine, can't you?
I'm visualizing an espresso machine.
Yeah, but imagine you have coffee or don't have coffee, you're content. Yeah, there's the cereal. Yeah. Maybe it's burnt on the bottom. It's okay. Yeah. And so on. You go through your day. Yeah. There's lunch. And they serve rice, beans, and cabbage. And you're content. We can dream. Yeah. I mean, really, contentment is the greatest riches, because that means whatever you encounter in your life, you're okay with it. Yeah, you don't have bad hair days anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a bad hair day? No. So, yeah, all the great wealth, contentment is supreme, said he who taught and guided gods and humans. Okay, so the gods and humans, those are the two realms where people have the most luxury. And he's saying to those people who have the most samsaric luxury that the real wealth is being content with what you have. It's interesting because sometimes you can look, sometimes people who don't have very much are much more generous than people who have a lot. Yeah. It's really interesting how that is. Yeah, 'cause sometimes the people who have a lot, they never have enough. They could always use more. The people who don't have much, they share what they have. It's really kind of amazing. One Lama told me that you've probably heard about how after they fled Tibet in 59, many of the monks wound up in Buxa in an old British POW camp. And they were trying to continue their studies there. They were dirt poor. They were sick. Many of them had TB and died, and they were subjected to the viruses that were rampant in lower climates, but they didn't have in Tibet. And this one Lama said, when we were all living at Buxa, nobody was in competition with each other to see who had more. Yeah. But once we as refugees started getting settled in India and accumulating things, that's when competition came. Yeah. It was interesting to hear that. How sometimes not having much, you have, much more contentment. Okay. So always be content. If you know this, yet have no wealth, true riches you will have found. So even you don't have physical wealth, if you have contentment, then you're really rich.
Venerable, it seems like this verse is focused in the examples you gave on worldly things, like sense pleasures and being content with that. But then it seems like there's another level of being content with maybe the way our practice is going.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be under the same umbrella of contentment, or is that like a separate category?
Oh, well, no, that's a really good kind of contentment. When you practice and you can see, you're feeling like your practice, you're getting somewhere, then that's a really nice kind of contentment. And at that time, you're not hankering after worldly things at all. Yeah, you're satisfied with what you have. You do your practice. You aren't comparing yourself. Oh, gee, I can sit in Vajra position longer than so-and-so. I'm better than them. But, their posture is better than mine. You're not into any of that.
I struggle a bit with the bad company because the truth is, most people around us are the people who care about us in a worldly way. And then there's many places that doesn't have Dharma support or centers. And then I think it's easy to be isolated as a serious Dharma practitioner. But we are also social people. We need to be interacting with others and have connections. What's your suggestions?
Move to some place where you have Dharma friends. What is it that keeps you living in places that don't support your practice?
Okay, so I live in one of the best spots.
She lives in Silicon Valley.
But San Francisco has a lot of centers.
And there's a lot of centers. How often do you make it to the centers?
Like 2-3 times a week.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good.
But there's still not many people in my age, right? Most of
Uh-huh.
people are a lot older.
Uh-huh.
And
There's nothing wrong with people who are older. Is there? Yeah. Okay, go on. You're sitting in a row with people who are young. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to carry on this point. I also struggled with this for a little while, and then I kind of just like swallowed it. It's like I'm gonna hang out with old people. So, the people who are in the Dharma groups that I participate in are like double or triple my age, and it's actually really refreshing because there's like a whole new perspective there. There's so much to learn from old people.
He's going to be our poster boy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't matter how old people are, does it? If you have a common kinship with them, yeah, my viewpoint is the spiritual side of us is the most precious side, and you can't share it with everybody on the planet because a lot of people just aren't interested. So whoever you can share it with, it doesn't matter how old they are. They may be old now, but wait a few years and they'll be young and you'll be the old one. Okay. And yeah, and the people you can share your practice with and find camaraderie in that way, I think that's very precious. Doesn't matter how old they are. Mm-hmm.
I remember struggling with this a bit because most of my friends, in New Zealand, were from the Buddhist center, but still they wanted to go out dancing, they wanted to go out drinking. There was just a different. They had different priorities, and I was criticized about being too extreme. You're being too strict. Why you don't have to do it this way? In terms of how I was wanting to practice, so I can just realize that I just had to find strength within myself to I want to practice this way. That's what makes me happy, and to try and find people that were wanting to support me and share that too. That's one of the main reasons that I'm here halfway across the world from where I was, because this is a conducive environment that I felt supported and is in line with how I wanted to practice. But to also work with my mind to not get angry or judgmental at my friends who wanted to. They were practicing in their own way. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes some sense. do you want to keep on with your question? I don't want to cut you off.
I think it's just that I think people get lonely and then they try to fill that space. And then often what you have available is worldly people who are more concerned about worldly things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And those are the people around. Yeah. Who else? You suffer from that too?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've noticed is especially I think our generation, we're so willing to sacrifice so much for a career. But when it comes to our spiritual growth, I think it becomes a lot harder because it's less tangible per se versus getting the latest Tesla or whatever. But I know for me, I have definitely felt very lonely sometimes within the spiritual path, especially the community that for a long time I identified with, and I've really because it's how I kind of grew up, and realizing that wasn't bringing the happiness that I looked at for so long, and so now it's kind of I actually try not to be there because it's just I know that it's just going to keep spiraling down. But it is challenging, and it's gotten to the point where it's okay, I need to basically move to where my teacher is essentially, because everything else in life, it's I could keep fighting the battle, and I'm always going to be subjected to somebody else's criteria versus something that's maybe more valid, a real valid sense of self-confidence in the Dharma. But I think it is challenging at times.
Yeah.
So, for me, I lived in Moscow when I was first introduced to the Dharma. I still remember the first time when Venerable Chudrin and Russell Coates gave a book talk on an open-hearted life, and that just changed me. And then at some point, I moved back to southern Idaho, Twin Falls, where I'm still living, and that was really difficult. I really fell out of practice because I wasn't with the Sangha. There was like nothing around me. The first person I turned to actually was a counselor because I just wanted to talk to somebody who would just like to talk. And then at some point I actually started a meditation club. And then as well, I've always had my friends. I'm sure many of you know Tristan. He's always been like a good Dharma buddy for me. And I think when I think about some of these things, I also have a problem with some of my friends in terms of being bad company and kind of luring me into certain, throwing out the hooks. Whoa. And but I also think that it's possible for us with bodhicitta to also try to inspire them, our friends, to walk on the path. And that's kind of what at least for myself in a world kind of bereft of Dharma, I think that's kind of what the world needs.
Yeah. You can try to do that, but you also have to be careful because sometimes, you say, well, my friends are going to the pub and I want to teach them the Dharma, so I'll go to the pub with them. You know how that ends.
First of all, I'm so glad all you young people are here because I learned so much. Dharma. I learned so much Dharma from you. So I'm really glad that we mix, like this. I like being in the world because it gives me the opportunities to learn Dharma. And yeah, I, have lived long enough to be able to stay away from people who, are not good for me. But I love the challenges of it. It's not that it's really that they help me see where I've been, where I'm going now. They let me think about the things that I've been involved with. So, it's not so bad.
I guess this particular thing, a lot of things come up for me because I've always been the youngest person in Dharma centers, and now I'm not, which is kind of a cool thing. Because I came into it at a really young age. I was fortunate enough to meet it when I was in high school, and some kind people were there along the way with me. And then as I got older, and had kids still at a young age, it was still isolating because being the youngest person, even though I made friends with the older practitioners, because this is who comes to Dharma centers. I found it's generally kids that are like college age, or people that are retired, but neither one of those groups of people have kids. And so I graduated from one group into another group that was also isolated. And, and then it's being a mother is very isolating. When we lived in Ohio and decided to move out west because, this is more of a conducive environment, we found out that the FPMT was moving to Portland, so we said, well, let's go check that out. And, but still the isolation still persisted. And, and without, even within that community, I totally get what is being said here because it's been kind of the story of my life. That isolation can really drag you down, and to some degree we have to, exist in this worldly world. And for me, raise my kids in that worldly world and find that kind of balance between how do we have a somewhat decent life, and uphold a Dharma practice. For me, it was the balance of being this perfectionist about my Dharma practice while still living in this world. And it really led to further isolation and then, verging on mental illness and stuff. And so that's a really real thing, and it can I think it can get dangerous, when it gets out of balance.
Yeah, it's this topic is something that I've worked with for a long time, and I've definitely felt out of balance before, living at a retreat center, not knowing what I'm doing. All my friends look like they're having fun, but you know what is going on. And then finally integrating it, and I guess the question that I have is still around that integration process. How do we know? Like, I feel like I'm in the right place, but it took a long time and a lot of effort, and but I still struggle. It's like, well, how much do I need to save to retire, versus how much do I just like give away? It's like, there's an urge. And then how do we balance that? And how do we know which is the right path so that if we are not a monastic, that we're living in the world, but in a healthy way. And then we're gradually cultivating our inner qualities so that we could grow in a nice progression.
Yeah, yeah, it's something really to think about, and it's there's no kind of pre-made, easy to hook into path because everybody lives in a different circumstance, and people live in different places, and people have different needs. Different emotional needs, different physical needs. But there's always the thing of how much do I prepare, like you said, for old age in this life, and how much do I prepare for future lives? Yeah? And it's not an easy thing in today's economy, And it's not like the Sangha doesn't have that either. Yeah. So I don't know that I'm the best person to give advice about that. Yeah, because I realized I couldn't do it. Yeah, I realized I couldn't survive in that kind of environment. My practice couldn't survive. I knew I wasn't strong enough. Yeah, but I think it would be good maybe if all of you at one point talked about this kind of thing and how you work with it. Yeah, and the young monastics too, join them and how you guys have worked with it. I think so. Maybe tomorrow or the next day during discussion group. Yeah, you can meet and talk about it.
Well, and that just brought to my mind is isolation really a thing that young people experience, or do we all experience that as practitioners? That's,
Well, there's also the question of what is the feeling of isolation about, and is it due to a lack of similar thinking people, or is it due to our hesitation to reach out and open up to other people? When we feel isolated, how much is the environment and how much is our own mental state? Mm-hmm.
It seems when I was growing up, it was you always felt like you were in community, whether it was your neighborhoods and I've lived in the town I'm in for 30 years, and the last two houses I lived in, the neighborhoods had a community. Mm-hmm. But that's been the last 6 years. That's it. And it wasn't a lack of reaching out, it's that people just don't kind of do that like we did when I was growing up. And I think that's some of it. And so how do we, I mean, it's a question I have all the time. How do we build communities?
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with technology, and people are so consumed with their phones and with technology that they don't have time, and they even feel uncomfortable being with live human beings. You and then you.
So, a quick comment. I know in Spokane here, there's been a real effort to build multi-generational communities. and just for sustainability, but also just so that older and younger people can create that community that you remember and that I remember. I had a special needs brother who the whole town took care of my brother. He'd go have French fries at the diner, and everybody'd call my mom and say where he was, and he was fine, or bring him home. But those communities are being created as well, and I think that's really good and really healthy for what's coming on.
I just want to share a story that's not mine, but Carol, who comes to our UU group in Spokane, came to retreat here for Vajrasattva 2 years ago, wanted to have support for her practice. So she made little signs and walked door to door throughout her neighborhood and invited people to come to a morning sit at 7 o'clock or something like that every morning. So about 12 people that she did not know accepted that and began to come to her house. They have all different styles of meditation. She's not trying to teach them, but they all sit, one of whom has completely opposite political views from hers, but they are now very close friends. The group is it's not 12 or 15 anymore, but there's like 5. But she just went out and did it door to door, and people said yes. So that, to me, is indicative of a need, and also her courage in asking for what she needed.
Yeah. But I think especially how people choose to spend their time and how many distractions there are. You want spiritual friendships, but everybody's seeing this movie and you've got to see that movie. Yeah. And you've just got a whole bunch of Facebook things, you have to see what all your friends ate for breakfast. Yeah. And then you have all your political feeds to read. So you have to read about the next, political crisis. So all your time's taken up by digital things. So I think, there also needs to be a withdrawal from spending our time on, online. Yeah.
Just about online. I think you're totally right that a lot of the websites that we frequent are not conducive to our Dharma practice or even our physical health or mental health at all. But I would like to, plug in that there also are Dharma-related websites. And it's important that you have the right motivation going there. I mean, personally, I can't say I always, a lot of times it's just because I'm bored and I want to do something. But even that, just having that it's Dharma in front of me and it's not like the Facebook feed is helpful. I can work on the motivation gradually, but the websites for Dharma do exist. They have helped a lot.
Okay. So let's dedicate.